guys, this is LMT ASMR, and today I have a special friend. Hi! We're gonna be reading a short story that she wrote.
The title is Chanel No. 5, and it's just a fun little 1920s flashback that I made up.
Cool, okay, let's get started.
The brown-haired girl sat at the brightly polished vanity as she carefully chose from the variety of glass bottles, finding the one labeled Chanel, her bright red lips smiling. The deep green curtains fluttered softly in the quiet breeze as the city lit up like stars outside of the balcony. She was cast in a warm glow from the crystal chandelier as the man walked in.
Don't you think you're being ridiculous?
He said, closing the door with a slam, startling her and spilling some of the precious liquid in her hands. Oh? How so? Do tell me, Charles.
That poor man has been waiting for an hour just to see you.
Poor man? Poor me, having to manage his feelings at a quite surface level. I mean, what could he possibly offer me?
You know perfectly well what he has to offer.
To you, but to me?
Honestly, Daisy, do you not care about us, about the family?
Do not call me Daisy. Only Mama was allowed to call me that. But she's gone now, so you will address me as Rosalinda. Do not make that mistake again if you want me to cooperate.
Stop acting like a child. Your birth name is Daisy.
Charles, do not test me. What duty do I have to you, to any of you? You were all perfectly content with your lives, pretending I did not exist and leaving me behind to deal with father. Now when you are all moments away from—
Don't say it.
Why? Hard to accept the truth, Charles. I was not the one spending time at drums. I was not the one who pranced around university acting like some flaming youth. I was not the one chasing after chicks who would never see me as an eligible match, only to end this way. Which reminds me, how is dear Victoria? Has she left you? Has she run back to her parents crying for divorce because you ruined her?
Why are you being so cruel to me? What about father?
What about father? What has he ever done for me?
Do you not want to continue living the way that you do?
I live the way I do because I can, not because of father. Paris? He has a manor in Paris. Is that all he has to offer me?
He's a good man.
The man stops briefly to kneel before the girl.
He promised to help us, all of us. Rosalinda. He promised to give you all you wanted. Please, just meet with him just once, I beg you.
To give me all I want? That is all he promised? The girl turns to the man, letting the glass bottle fall to the floor at his knees as she leaned in. And what is it that you think that I want? Tell me, Charles.
To continue like this without a worry in the world.
You do not get it, do you? Standing up from the little vanity with a final turn, she says, Paris is not nearly far enough.
We have another story to read. It's called Peter. Tell us about it.
The best way to describe the story is a Peter Pan fan fiction. I do apologize. It's like a spin-off story, I guess.
Nice. Okay. 1,
2,
3,
4. Take a breath and start again.
1,
2,
3,
4.
5.
Breathe.
1,
2.
3. Anxious?
Said a calm, worried voice out of the darkness. I smiled as I felt the adrenaline racing through my veins. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run, but the piercing yells coming from the other side of the door kept me in place. Yeah,
I replied in as stable voice I could muster. I heard a rustle of blankets followed by a low groan, as if the bed was in pain. I felt a breeze as she lifted up my blankets and slowly wrapped her arms around me. She pressed her forehead against the nape of my neck. I held onto her arm as I took in a slow, deep breath. If you need to go, then go,
she whispered. Her voice sounded raspy and sleepy. We stayed together in silence for a bit longer, listening to the crashing sounds and the curse words being thrown around. Our room was dark, the only light coming from that small glow under the bedroom door frame. That wouldn't be a problem. I already knew where all my stuff was. I felt her squeeze me a little before kissing my shoulder blade and sliding her way out of my bed, back into hers.
I looked at the small digital clock on our shared nightstand. It read 1 a.m. in thin red block letters. I shouldn't be going out, but if I stay, I won't be able to control the tears that will stream down my face, and the last thing I want is for anyone to hear me cry.
I sat up and pushed the blankets away from me, closing my eyes as I squeezed my knees as closely as I could to my body before getting up and dressed. My dad always came into our room at about 5 in the morning to kiss us goodbye. I had to come back before then, but as fast as I knew I should be going, it took me a long time to put my pants on.
Tonight felt different, though. My hands couldn't stop shaking as I tied my shoes. I heard another crash from the other side of my door as I reached for the green camel bomber jacket that my dad left behind every morning.
Somebody was crying now. It sounded like my dad. I couldn't breathe. I needed to run. I pushed my arms through the jacket as I walked to the window on the right side of our room, which gave us a view of the front yard.
Our house was only one story, so sneaking out was relatively easy, especially when our parents always had the living room window blinds firmly shut. I opened the window and felt the breeze on my face, letting out a breath of relief. Be safe.
I heard her call out to me as I sat on the ledge of the windowsill. I hesitated for a second. I looked out towards the dark of the night, the crisp air enticing me, yet there was a part of me that didn't want to leave her behind. It felt like I was abandoning her, but I didn't want to look back.
I will,
was all I said before jumping out of the window.
I had no place in mind. I just walked until I could feel the anxiety easing its way out of my system. I never took anything with me. I didn't want them fighting me before I had the chance to think clearly. I took a deep breath and felt the air sting my nose as I looked to my right to notice a row of trees thickly packed together.
I had walked this path many times and never had I noticed dense forestry. Random forests weren't unusual in this part of town, but there was a low melodic hum that pulsed through the ground, making this forest seem alive. I could feel it as I stood there, vibrating through me. My fingers twitched, and before I realized what I was doing, my feet moved towards it.
It was dark and I couldn't see directly in front of me, but the more I walked, the more intense the vibrations became. I could hear the branches crunching under my feet, and I didn't know where I was going, and it felt like I was running, even though I knew I was walking like a turtle.
There was a sudden break in the trees, and I was blinded by warm light as I covered my eyes, walking like a drunk person as the vibrations continued. I blinked, and as my eyes adjusted, I found myself in front of a large mansion, where the pulsing just stopped.
It exuded elegance and luxury, looking like a giant stone cottage with arching points. The warm glow coming from the giant windows, and the backyard was corralled by a wooden fence to the left of the house. There were no cars in front of the massive mansion doors, and there was no pavement.
The pulsing was back, but I couldn't see it, rippling through the air around the mansion. I walked closer, reaching a hand out to touch it, feeling the pulse draw me in. It felt like someone was clenching my heart as I walked closer, being attracted to the wooden door that would lead me to the backyard. The fence was tall, and I could not see anything beyond it, but I kept going forward.
There was a small bronze latch that was not locked, and the door was slightly ajar, the warm glow getting brighter. I laid my hand against it, my breath catching as I pushed the door open. The pulsing now made me feel extremely warm and dizzy. I blinked slowly as I tried to process what I was seeing. All around the vast backyard were boys, chatting together, holding champagne glasses with a clear sparkling liquid.
They looked to be anywhere between 10 to 18 years old. They seemed to be divided in two classes, those that were wearing green peacoats and black satin masks, and those that weren't. The ones that weren't were wearing all sorts of things, from pajamas to jeans and jackets, while others looked like they had been sleeping in the streets. It was a strange party to be having in the middle of the night. There were tables overflowing with glasses and food. Fairy lights lined the wooden fence, and music seemed to be coming from somewhere. The dizziness consumed me as I stuck my arms out to steady myself, realizing that I was the only girl.
I stood at the edge of the party, my mouth dry, indecisive about whether or not I wanted to find out what exactly was happening. However, before I could decide what I wanted to do, one of the boys was coming my way. I tried to back away, but found that I could not move. It felt like my heart was trying to break out of my body, the dizziness spinning my world. I saw him slowly approaching me like an oncoming storm, and I could do nothing.
He looked slightly different than all the other boys. His coat was longer, resembling an overcoat, but he was still wearing a satin black mask. As he came closer, I realized his eye matched the color of the sky on a rainy day. He walked towards me with the determination of a predator that had trapped his prey.
Now, how did a little rabbit like yourself stumble upon this place?
He asked, his lips twitching into a smirk. He was now standing directly in front of me, his presence steadying me and silencing the pulses that threatened to unbalance me.
I'm not a rabbit,
I replied through gritted teeth. I refused to feel trapped, as his voice incited goosebumps to rise on my skin.
His presence commanded attention, but he looked like a normal 18-year-old boy. His smirk fell, and the air around him changed. It crackled.
I suggest you answer my questions, Rabbit. Are you lost?
He asked, his eyebrows drawing in.
No,
I said, trying to move my body but failing, finally looking into his stormy eyes.
Do not try my patience,
he said harshly, a Cheshire cat-like smile making an appearance.
The forest was pulsing,
I said, balling my hands into fists as I heard him chuckle.
So you are lost,
he said as his smile grew bigger and I clenched my jaw.
No need to be so hostile, little rabbit. This place is a getaway for kids that have nowhere to go,
he said, motioning to the scene behind him, never breaking eye contact with me. I tried to move again, but my feet were still firmly planted and my arms still sticking out stupidly.
Then why do I feel threatened?
I asked, still feeling his power ebb and flow.
I'm not threatening you, but I need to know that you belong here,
he said, smirking at me, waving his hand around as if my question were obvious.
Who says I want to be a part of your gang of lost boys?
I asked, making him frown.
Silly little rabbit. If you didn't want to be here, then why did you follow the pulsing?
He asked. My breath hitched and he smiled.
Not just anyone can feel the call. Only those desperate to escape can feel it. So tell me, Rabbit.
He paused as he walked closer, allowing me to see the small brown freckles that were speckled over the bridge of his nose.
If I gave you the chance to run away, to a place where you could never be found, would you?
Those were the 2 stories, and if you enjoyed them, then we might come back with more, because she has a lot of stories.
I do.
Alright.
Tell us your preference, if you liked the dialogue or the second one better.
Yes. Any feedback would be good for us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Adios.